Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dale here with Nerd in the Huddle. On this video, with the Premier League season coming to an end, one game away, well, you can count two if it's Arsenal and Burnley, which is tonight. I want your opinion on who has been the best player this season. Everyone's going to have their opinions, but for me, there's really outstanding candidates. For me, it's probably Bruno Fernandes. I think he's standing out at the moment. Declan Rice being a pivotal part of Arsenal's midfield. Haaland. Now, this is what I'll say about Haaland. He's scoring so many goals, and a lot of people will probably consider this a bad season for him. You know, because in games you think, oh, he's really quiet, and then all of a sudden he'll just come out and score a goal. Gabriel is a shout. He's definitely been absolutely a rock at the back for Arsenal. He's been solid. He's scored plenty of goals for them. One thing I will say about that, a little bit controversial, is, maybe one or two of those goals could have been free kicks on the keeper. You could argue that. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here. Same as you could say Bruno Fernandes probably didn't start the season well, but what he did, he was put in midfield, rather attacking midfield. Now he's in his favourite position. He is absolutely flying. My personal opinion is it's between Bruno Fernandes and Declan Rice. But for me, it has to be Bruno Fernandes. That's my opinion. I think Bruno Fernandes has, and I'll say this bluntly, I think he's carried Manchester United this season. You could put Casemiro in there. The questions I got about Casemiro, and by the way, I must say, he leaves Man United with so much praise, and for me, I think he's done really, really well since coming to Manchester United. I think the first season he was outstanding. Perhaps last season he wasn't the greatest. This season, again, probably started off slow. And there's probably still would be concerns about his pace and tracking back. But I think he goes away doing an excellent job for Manchester United. He's been an absolute servant of the game. He's been absolutely brilliant over the course of his career. I don't know where he plans to go to next. I can imagine it might be Saudi or America, somewhere like that. But yeah, it's a curious one. He can still play in probably a in the top league, but a lower club. And what I mean by that is, if you go to Spain, maybe you could do a Villarreal or something, but not a Barcelona or Real Madrid. I mean, you can't go to Barcelona anyway. Jesus, that would be go from hero to traitor. But that's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. He would never do that as well. And same for Manchester United and let's say Liverpool. But he could still play for like a Bournemouth, but I don't think he will because obviously he's on massive wages at Manchester United. I think he'll look for somewhere where he will be able to keep those wages. I wish him all the best. I think he's been a really good player for us, and this season, although I probably had my concerns about his pace and his track back, his presence in the box for headers, I think has been incredibly important. You know, the amount of balls Fernandez have put in for Casemiro to head in the corner, you know, they've been incredibly, incredibly important this season to getting us third. Seeing as I'm talking about Manchester United as well, on that note, is should have Carrick got the job for Manchester United? Personally, I, I, I hope it works out. I really, really do. But I do see it does seem really, really familiar. It seems like we've been down this road before, and it's a big, big concern for me. But if it works out, I'll be very, very happy. Um, and I know you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Solskjaer. I think a it's incredibly repetitive, and I think we've been down this road before. Yet we're making the same decisions that the Glazers made, and that is concerning for me. Um, let's say Liverpool, right? Very for Liverpool fans, a concerning season. You know, with maybe Slot and Salah coming out speaking about what his opinions, and yeah, it's been a very up and down season for Liverpool. A poor season by their standards. Now, why do I think that's happened? I think Diaz has been a big miss. A big miss. Spending 100 and what was it? It was 120 million on Alexander Isaac. Isaac. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Um, and him being really having a lot of injuries, and I think having just not being in the team, and when he has been in the team, not performing well enough. So I think also, in this part, you can't really blame the kid because he did come good in the end. Like you got to give him time. Is it took a little while for Wirtz to come into stride. Like if you look as Sabotslai, yeah, there we go. Uh, he took a season to fit in, and now he's playing really well. His free kicks very dangerous, as we know. I think now with Salah leaving and the time of Klopp was Salah, Firmino, and Mane. Now they're no longer there, completely no longer there. You could talk about Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson as well. Obviously, they were there. That team is going. So you tried to bring in new players like Diaz, and Diaz really stood out. He looked like he was going to be a good replacement for Mane. However, they sold him and kept Gakpo. It seemed like it didn't make sense to me. It didn't even make sense signing Isaac, and because the Liverpool already signed an £85 million striker. Why are you buying another 120 mil striker? And I've talked to my friend. He's a Liverpool supporter. I'm a Man United and Cardiff supporter. He's a Liverpool and Cardiff supporter. So we've talked about our respective clubs. It's this both have their complications, but Man United are probably they're in the shit at the moment. They're really, really in the shit. I think Liverpool will respond. I worry about Man United. Chelsea. Obviously, I know some things, but this is just my opinion. Of course, I'm a fan of a different club. I watch a lot of football, but I'm not a Chelsea fan. Chelsea will know a lot more about what's going on than me. But this is just my view of what's going on. I don't understand why they've bought so many young players without bringing or keeping enough experience to mentor those players through. And it's left young kids trying to find their way without having that experienced player who can help mentor them through. Probably got Cucurella, and James, but James is like 26, if I'm not mistaken. He's incredibly experienced for his age, but still, he could use some time to develop his own game. Uh, so yeah, and even like this season, of course, it's a different manager now. But like, if you think of um, like again, my pronunciation is probably not great, but Liam Rosnier as manager, um, he was a young manager as well. It didn't even have an experienced manager to help them through that. He, I mean, if you, and yeah, he had a small spell where he had a really good run, but yeah, overall, probably would have got sacked, had to get sacked. Um, but those young players, they need help through development. I think this like you look some top quality players. Caicedo. I like Enzo. I do like Enzo. I do like Fernandez. João Pedro, another one who looks really really good. But I think like any young player, of course, the thing I think why João Pedro has probably done well is he had really experienced players at Brighton to help him develop. I think that's hugely helped João Pedro come into Chelsea and settle pretty quick. Um, Enzo, again, he had some experienced heads at Benfica. Was it Benfica or Sport? But it took him time to settle in. But yeah, it's took some time, and the same would go with João Pedro. The same would go for Caicedo. His time at Brighton, it's really helped his young development. His development as a young player. Of course, he came in at 21 and still young. They must be about 22, 23 now. All of them about. So although they had some really good early development there. It's just going to take some time for the other players because perhaps they didn't have the same level of mentorship. We don't know. Um, yeah, so it's interesting. Then maybe we're talking. Oh, we were talking about Brighton. So Brighton this season, Brighton have been. I mean, I'm holding them to the standards of 4 seasons ago when they finished fifth or sixth. Yeah, if I'm holding them to those standards, it's like you. It's a weird, it's a strange one this season for Brighton. Like there was periods where they looked really quite bad. You know that they were more than top 10, probably gonna finish in the bottom 10. Like, so that was certainly a. It looked like they'll be finishing in the bottom half, but then they picked it up. They picked it back up. They started doing well again. And I think although they didn't win, they lost to Leeds, didn't they? Was it them who lost to Leeds? Yeah, Leeds. They lost, even though they lost to Leeds this weekend, 1-0. They have been doing really well in recent times, and you know they're a very likable club. So seeing them do being up there is really good to see. Like Bournemouth and Brentford, I think they've got a likable aura. Um, so if I was to give, let's give each one a rating out of 10. All right, I'll go through the teams that I've just mentioned. All right, so actually I'll start from bottom to top and make it a bit easier. Wolves, a couple of weeks ago, they had a little bit of a run, but in truth, overall, the season's been really bad. And there was at one stage, everyone believed that, quite a few people believed that they were going to have the worst points total in history. It was that bad. Like it was that bad. So when they went on that little run, it was too late. It was way too late. The season had gone. So, you know, they're not gonna, especially by their standards in recent years. I'm gonna go. I'll give them two. Give them two. I know it's not great, but yeah, it's been a poor season by Wolves. Poor season. And of course, I'm holding them by their reputable standards. Burnley, I think they've been just as bad as Wolves. I think they've been so bad. I think I think they've missed company. Um, I think they've been just as bad as Wolves, so two. I'll have to give them a two. West Ham. West Ham. They're a complicated one. they're a. I mean, again, they were awful for pretty much the entire season. And I probably, if they continued that way, I probably would have gave them a two as well. But in recent weeks, they've scrapped themselves into possibly surviving. Possibly, we'll have to see. They need to do a lot better now, because just for note, right? Just for note that just because a team is below another team, the team below might actually get a higher score than the one above. And why I do that is because I'm also taking into consideration their their reputation, like in terms of, you know, this team, they should be up there, you know, as well. So West Ham, is one of the teams. If I was gonna, I wouldn't like to see West Ham relegated, but yeah, it doesn't look good for them at the moment. West Ham, I'm not gonna lie, they've been struggling for a few seasons now. They've been struggling for a few seasons, which really it's almost confusing. And what I mean by that is they got some really good players there. Really, really good players. Bowen, even Shushek, and this is some really, really good players, and hopefully, well, when I say hopefully, um, West Ham fans will be hoping that they will stay at, but it's a tough one now. It's an uphill climb. So West Ham, even though I think they'll probably get relegated after a really bad result against Newcastle. I think it's a very disappointing result, the one against Newcastle. I think overall this season has probably been a four. A four. Yeah. Now, again, this is one where the one below is going to have a higher rating than this team, and I'll explain why. Of course, I'm talking about Spurs. I'm talking about Tottenham. It's I will go a two as well. Reason being is no matter it's it's a team that shouldn't be down there. I mean, they haven't been other than last season. I will say though, I think it's shown something with Spurs. I think it's really, really exposed something about Spurs. How how much Kane and Son carried Spurs for years. Those two players carried Spurs. I think that's what is kind of showing now. With no with no Kane, with no Son, finished 18th last season. No, not 18th. 16th. 18th, it would have been relegated. Was this? I think it might have been 16th. I'll have to double check that. But they finished in a really, really bad position. last season, and they've finished in that position again. And coincidentally, it was after Son left and Kane. Season before. It, it's really, I think, exposed something about Spurs, and I honestly, I don't know how they repair that. You know, maybe there's one or two. There's one or two, but there's obviously players there that can probably just scrap them out of getting relegated. I think Simmons has done well in recent weeks, but it's a tough one. Is Spurs gonna be battling relegation next season again, or will they be back in the top 10 next season? I don't know. That's a hard one to call. That's a really hard one to call. I think that I think they can. I think they can go top 10. I definitely wouldn't have saw Man United finishing third this season after they finished 15th last season. I I don't know how next season is going to go for Spurs, but yeah, I think it exposes how much they were reliant on Son and King. Now they're gone. Forest. Let's go on to Forest. Forest is another disappointing season. Considering how good they were last season, considering how much they've impressed us in previous years, fans when they finished. I'll have to check last season's table, but when they finished in the top seven, really, really impressed us all and thought that they were gonna at least this season be in the top 10, at least in the top 10 this season. And although I think they're safe now. Yeah, even though they're safe, it's been an incredibly poor season. Incredibly poor season. So I'm I'm disappointed with them, bro. I'll go a 3. I'll go a 3. I think as well they've had some really bad injuries, a lot of injuries this year, but we'll see what happens next season. Palace, I mean, they've been pretty standard, probably what you expect Palace to finish. I probably would have expected them maybe 11th or 12th, 15th. Obviously, this is not certified. They could go higher, they could go lower. But with one game to go, they're 15th. So that, obviously I'm going up 20th to 4th, but this is prior one game. So the table can change. I will go 6, maybe 5. I'll go 5. I'll go 5. I think it's been a pretty standard season for Palace. Leeds. Mm, I don't think it's been. I think it's been a pretty decent season. Uh, Again, it's been probably what you expected in terms of it's been a relegation battle pretty much all of the season. Even though they're safe now, they made obviously a late push runs of results. I think I definitely think Calvert Lewin has done really well for them. So 14th. I think it'll end with a pretty if they finishes like this, I think they'll be pretty happy with that. I don't think that they would be too displeased. I will go. I'll go 6. Fulham 13th at the moment. I think they'll definitely be happy with how Harry Wilson has performed. How Harry Wilson has performed this season. I think he's been really, really good. Really, really good. So I think a 13th place finish, I think they'll be pretty happy with that. I think I think maybe a 6 or 7. So I'll I'll go 6. I'll go 6. But I'm definitely going 7 for the next one, maybe an 8. And that's Everton. I think they've done really, really well this season. I think they've done well above what people probably thought they were going to do. I think I think there was a lot of people expecting Everton to be in a relegation battle for pretty much the entire season. And they've gone and got some pretty impressive results and some pretty impressive performances. So, based on that, I think I'll give them a 7 or 8. I'll probably go an 8. For them, for you know, yeah. Newcastle 11th. Newcastle. I think everyone was expecting them to do better. I think everyone they were at least expecting top 10. At least in the top 10. If I was to wonder why, I think I I don't think it's been a great season, like I said. I'll go 5, maybe 4, but I'll go 5. Chelsea, very disappointing. 10th. Of course, Chelsea, Newcastle, Everton, Fulham, all on the same amount of points. So, of course, like I said, all these could change. Chelsea, I think they'll be expecting more. I think they'll be expecting more next season. I was expecting at least top 8. So I'll go 5. No, if I've gone Newcastle 5, I think I'll go. Although they've probably performed better than Newcastle, but by their standards, yeah, 5. If considering their standards, 5. Sunderland, absolutely fantastic season. I think they've been absolutely brilliant. I think they've had some really impressive performances, some really, um, yeah. I think they should be very proud of themselves this season. Although likelihood they won't get into Europe next season, they still they need to take a lot of pride because they definitely were in the race for Europe for pretty much a lot of the season. So Sunderland, I'm gonna give them a solid 8. I think they should take, like I said, a lot of pride for this season, as should Brentford. Brentford has been absolutely fantastic. Igor has been absolutely brilliant. I will go for Brentford, and again, it's taking into consideration what was probably expected of them this season. No one expected Brentford to be fighting for Europe this season. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So on that, I'll go 9. A real solid 9. I think they've really impressed me. They've definitely really impressed me. Brighton, if Brentford is a 9, I'll go an 8 for Brighton. Only because I think there was probably a little bit more expected of Brentford, of Brighton than Brentford. Bournemouth, same as Brentford, 9. 9. I think they've been fantastic. They're the two teams for me that have been absolutely fantastic. Same with probably Villa. Liverpool, I mean, they're reigning champions. So you're probably expecting them to be in the top three. Honestly, it's a bit like Man United in terms of I don't know how we're in Europe. Okay, Liverpool. I mean, it's a really, really tough one to call with that one. Liverpool have been poor, but they've kind of found themselves in the Champions League place. So I will go 6 because they have got into the have got into Champions League place. Villa again, they've had it for a couple of seasons now. Absolutely fantastic. Ollie Watkins, but Unai Emery. Unai Emery, what a manager. What a manager. He needs to take a huge amount of credit for how they've performed in the past few seasons. And yeah, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, I'll give them a 9. Manchester United, again, like I said, it's a bit like Liverpool. I don't think they perform well. I think they've actually performed really, really poorly. But we've got the results. We got the results to win matches. I mean, yeah. So we've got there. We've got there in the Champions League. Over the course of the season, I mean, just based on we're third, I'll go 7th. Because, like I said, I think Bruno Fernandes has pretty much carried Manchester United. I think he's just been so good this season that we we haven't I don't think there's been much of a performance or anything like that. I mean, the assist tally speaks for itself. You know, that speaks for itself because just take Bruno Fernandes out of the team. Do we get those goals? Do we still get third place? Absolutely not. Will is it, absolutely not for me. There's big problems still, and I think finishing third, it almost papers a lot of cracks, papers over a lot of cracks, and still gonna need to acknowledge that there's problems there. So it's a tough one, but that's a video for another day. Second place, Man City. Man City. Another tough one. Again, I'm probably don't think that they've had their best seasons, yet they're still in the Champions League race. Not Champions League race, the Premier League race. By their standards, I'll go 7. Arsenal, it's strange because if I think of players there who have been world class, it's only like 4 players I would probably say has become world class or has become top, yeah, like top players in the world, and that'll be Rice. That would be Saliba, Gabriel, possibly Raya. But other than that, not really. I think it's actually been quite a poor season. Um, I think the top clubs have been really, really poor this season. And when I say the top clubs, I mean the big six, the big clubs. You know, I think each one has actually been poor, and that's why teams who have been poor this season are actually finding themselves in the Champions League. So how is Manchester United playing poor yet they're third? How is Liverpool had a really poor season yet they're going to finish 4th, maybe 5th? I think they're 5th. It's because how are they picking those points up? It's because everyone around them has played just as poor. I mean, you look at Chelsea. Where do they? Look at Tottenham. Where are they? You look at it's I mean, uh, it's just it's been crazy. Like I said, this no big clubs that's done really really well. You know, there's not. Arsenal are not. It's just been a really really poor season. It's just been really really poor. Like I said, Man City. I think Man City have been poor. I know they've probably had um, a decent season. No, no. You know, it hasn't been great. You know, and with respect, they've done really, really well. But how are we finding like a Brentford and a Bournemouth and an Aston Villa and a Brighton all in the top 8? You know, potentially Sunderland. How are all these teams all there, and the likes of Spurs, Chelsea, Newcastle, who's had huge investment? Um, you know, how are they not in it? And teams who have been probably played poorly, but somehow still picked up picked up points, it's because everyone around you is just as bad. The only ones that's probably been really good this season, and I think Arsenal is probably like it I think it's been like a typical Arsenal season. They were very, very close to bottling it again, and guess what? They only did it. They pretty much did until Man City dropped points, and they almost bottled it. They've pretty much bottled it because it was in their hands then. It's like it's crazy. It's crazy how this season has gone. It's really, really crazy how this season has gone. Arsenal, because they'll win the league, I'll go 8. But to be perfectly honest, like if you're looking at past teams, who have won the Premier League, you're looking 9s and 10s. you know, you're looking at great great teams who, when they've won the Premier League, they yeah. Now, people might think I'm harsh because, again, somehow they found themselves in the Champions League. In the Champions League, I also think the Champions League has been pretty poor. Real Madrid has been awful. They had such a bad, such a bad Champions League run. Same goes for Barcelona. I think it's been really poor by them as well. I think the two best teams in the tournament actually were in the semi-finals, and that was Bayern Munich and PSG. I think those two have been the best in the tournament so far. Obviously, one of them had to be knocked out. Obviously, in one round, Arsenal got Atletico Madrid, who have been awful. They haven't been great. So yeah, it's I kind of think that they've kind of yeah. I kind of don't know how they've gone into the final, but they are. Um, but yeah, hopefully, PSG. Yeah, who knows? Um, but yeah, really, really interesting. I mean, fair play for getting there. You know, they they're in the final, and although they deserve credit for getting there, I do think I think it's been a poor season altogether. It's been good seeing the likes, like I said, the likes of Brighton and Bournemouth and Sunderland and Aston Villa doing really well. It's been incredible seeing those teams do well. But in truth, I feel like the big clubs, the big six, and the big clubs, I think they've done really, really poorly. I think all of them have. I think they've done really, really poorly, and it's been a really, really poor season. But you know, maybe things will be a bit better next season. Um, so we'll see. And hopefully Real Madrid and Barcelona could do better next season in the Champions League and give a better show there. A better show in the Champions League, um, and then a few others as well. You know, the English teams in the Champions League were poor. I mean, the only one that got it was Arsenal, obviously. But then you're looking at Man City didn't do great. Liverpool didn't do great. Newcastle didn't do great. You know, they all didn't do great except probably Arsenal, who done decent. I don't think they, you know, I don't think they were a great team. You know, and so we see where football is heading. We'll see how things change with football. And like I said, it's really, really good in terms of bringing in competition when it comes to Brighton and Bournemouth and Sunderland and Aston Villa. You know, I could keep going. To the ones who've really, really done well this season. Um, Again, I want to give a shout out to Everton. I think they've done really, really well. Um, but in terms of the top six, those clubs, why what what's happening to them? You know, Manchester United. See what happens there. Liverpool. We'll see. Tottenham. We'll see. Chelsea. We'll see. You know, keep going. You know. So we'll see. Well, all the best, guys. Lovely chat. All the best. Take care, guys.